So what should women and men in leadership be doing practically then to be encouraging women to come up and sort of aspire for leadership roles? Because there's a massive gap, isn't there, in management and in bigger roles further up in the company. What should we be doing practically?
Taking men with us, making men be positive advocates. One of the best banners that was at the Women's March recently was the one that said, "Men of quality don't fear equality." And I just thought that was just an awesome thing. So take the men with us. Realise what important positions we've got as well. We are setting the context. We are setting the agenda in our industry for what people see on screens, in papers, etc. So really, really take responsibility for that. And I think the other thing is don't let gender fall off the agenda when we are looking at so many other areas of the diversity spectrum now, rightfully so, but we are still not there yet on everything to do with gender. I said to a managing director of my acquaintance recently, I said, so when a guy comes into your room and he tells you that he's having a baby, do you turn around and say, fantastic, well, why don't you take a good chunk of paternity leave? He said, God, no. He said, I'm not sure, that's a big old thing. I'm not sure we could do it. And I said, but think about the corollary. You'd have your women taking only 6 months and the men taking 6 months. So actually it's sort of all upside, and actually until we start talking that language and changing some of our cultural norms, we're not going to get to this point where it is parenting.
And I think one of the main things, when I had kids, I wanted my kids' father to share the care with me. That was something really important. And I know that when he went for a job at his new organisation, one of the things he had to tell them right up front was, by the way, my wife works these particular hours, I will need to go and do this childcare. Is that going to be a problem? And they went, no, I think that's fine. And he said they were quite surprised, but nobody had a problem with it. Nobody had a problem at all, and it's never been a problem ever since. And in fact, they're extremely flexible. So I think it's also giving organisations the opportunity to be flexible by being honest about what you want.
When actually, showed that women so rarely ask, maybe once a year, once every couple of years, they'll go in and ask for a pay rise, whereas men will think nothing of doing it 4 times a year. So ask for it, but know your worth and be doing the job, or be ready to take something new else on, rather than just expecting money to come your way. But the first thing you've got to do is go in and have the conversation, not in an obnoxious way, but in a way that actually opens up the reality of the money coming your way.
Okay.
And also, to add to that, if the answer's no, don't be afraid to go back later on. Because I do think there is an approach that men learn very early when they get rejected when they're asking people out, to just keep going. Whereas women, when we get rejected, we tend to shy away and never do it again. So there is something which men learn very early on. It's a numbers game. And I do think we need to sort of have that approach when it comes to negotiation. If you don't get the answer that you want, take stock, go back in and try again later on, but go back in a nice way, as Sam said.
How long do you have? Yeah, absolutely. Do you guys want to add anything to that?
No, I was just going to say, I think one of the most helpful conversations you can have is to say to your boss, this is where I want to be, how do I get there? Not, can I get there, please, but this is where I want to be, help me get there. And I think that's a better conversation to have about everything.
I genuinely believe that, and I said it earlier, facts and stats are your friends. So if the consumer economy had a gender, it's female. 70 to 80% of all purchases are made by women. If you look at areas that you traditionally think were associated with men, 55% of car purchases are made by women, 60% of computer purchases are made by women. And for those older, male, outdated leaders that don't recognise the value of having women in their organisation in senior roles, they're not going to be future-proofing their own business. And it's as simple as that. It's about future-proofing your business, making sure that you have diversity of thought, and absolutely making sure that you can generate inclusive communication ideas. You can only do that if you've got a range of people who are different. And, Sam said earlier that in our industry, we have a responsibility because we set what the norm is. We set what is seen as content on whatever screen it is that you look at, whatever printed title it is that you read. We set the norm.